I'm going to be introducing a new series on my blog and on the Online Academy where I'm going to go through several pieces, hand-selected pieces, and just go through a process I call quarantining or cue spots, which are really areas of weakness within those pieces that unless we address that particular area of weakness, these are going to let us down when we perform. So let's look first of all at areas of weakness in a broader sense. So let's say you're a particularly good reader, a particularly good sight reader, but you find it difficult to memorize. Then memorization might be an area of weakness that you'd need to address. Let's say the opposite is true, that you memorize very quickly from having heard a piece once or twice and reading it maybe once or twice, and then it's gone in, and therefore you don't have any reading skills. The reading skills would be an area of weakness that you'd need to address. But I'm talking specifically now about sections of pieces. It could be a bar here, 2 bars there, that don't stack up. So what you'll find is when you play through a piece, there will be these same spots that keep popping up each time that let you down. So what we do is we isolate them by, I like to draw a square bracket in the score. You could, if you wanted to, just snap a photograph of it, edit the photograph and put it in a slideshow so that you've got a series of cue spots for the pieces that you're working on at the moment. That's another way of doing it. So think about it like this: a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So if I've got mostly strong links and then 2 or 3 weak links, I might be able to get by when I'm playing for myself at home, wouldn't be a particular problem, but as soon as I'm out there in front of people or at an exam setting or a recital setting, those are the places that are likely to snap under pressure and just could even derail us completely. One really important thing about this for the teacher-pupil relationship, let's say you're a teacher and you've identified 2 or 3 spots in a particular piece that your pupil is struggling with. The important thing is to witness those in the next lesson, so that the pupil will walk in and you will say, I remember there are 3 cue spots from your whatever piece it was that I assigned for you to practice. How are they going? Let's hear them. So you'd hear cue spot 1 and then you'd hear cue spot 2 and then you'd hear cue spot 3. And if they were working well, then you'd hear from the beginning of the piece. If they weren't working well, you'd continue to work on them in the lesson and then perhaps not hear the rest of the piece at all, but only hear the rest of the piece when those areas have been polished and mastered. I'm going to give you a little example from a very, very wonderful, I think it's an excellent little piece by Kabalevsky, Opus 27, the Etude in A minor. I'm just going to show you, there are 2 bars in this etude. This is the etude that begins this way. I'm sure we're all familiar with that. An excellent piece for the lower intermediate to really get a little bit of fire into their playing, a little bit of excitement into their playing. It uses the whole keyboard. It's beautifully written. Most of it is fairly straightforward from the point of view of material, but there are 2 bars in there, bars 10 and 11, that if you're a teacher you'll be nodding now. You say, oh yes, I know exactly which 2 bars you mean. And I'm just going to play you those 2 bars nice and slowly. And that's the cue spot. That's the cue spot that I've identified with 2 square brackets, bars 10 and 11. So I might assign my student exercises or practice method. The most obvious thing to do first is separate hands. People forget separate hands. Even when we know a piece well, going back to practicing separate hands. So we play our right hand. And as we play, we try and use our understanding as well. We understand, that's just a B flat major scale that starts on an A, goes up to a B flat, down to the next B flat, and then there are 2 tail notes on the end of that. So I've now got an understanding of the design of that, and my hand is capable of playing it. If my hand weren't capable of playing that smoothly, I can of course use some rhythms. Dotted rhythms, and then the other way around. And then this rhythm in groups of 4, and then in groups of 8. See how that works? That's not rocket science, that's good old-fashioned basic piano practice. Then I look at my left hand in the same way. A little bit more complicated, I might want to break this up. Put little breaks in between the groups. And then I recognise there's a little awkward spot there that doesn't really follow much of the pattern. So I'd really need to know that I knew, maybe I practiced those staccato notes legato. That's always a good thing to do when we've got staccato notes, practice them legato. Then I can play my right hand and I can play my left hand. Then what I'd do, I would start doing some chaining. So beat 1 to beat 2, and then beat 2 to beat 3, and then I'd join beat 1 to beat 2 to beat 3. Do you get the idea? So what I'm doing here is good practice. I'm not playing through those 2 bars over and over and over until I hope I get them right. I'm breaking them down and I'm practicing them methodically. Then what I can do after I've done that is just to leave that piece. I don't have to incorporate it back into the piece immediately. So I could say that was my practice there on that piece, and maybe there would be another one, maybe the scale at the end. Close the book, move on to something else. So a cue spot is something you do before you practice that piece. It's something you do separately from other types of practice. And once you get good at following this, you'll find that you can preempt problems before they start. So in a new piece you might say, okay, I'm going to look at this bit before I look at the beginning. I can see 2 or 3 areas there that could cause me issues. I'm going to work on them first before I learn anything else. So this is my new cue spot series. I hope you'll get some enjoyment from going through this process with me.